Okay, well, Photoshop is not necessarily a painting program. You can still have some fun with it in doing some painting projects in Photoshop. And just doing a real quick demonstration to start a new blank file. And let's just go in my photo sizes here, and let's go a landscape 8 by 10. So we'll come up with something like this to work with. Going to our brush tool, you can start with something very simple, and let's just use a round brush like that. And using my left and right square bracket keys, my right square bracket key makes it bigger, left makes it smaller. So let's just do that, and let's go in my color, my foreground color, and let's pick a brown of some sort, something like that. And let's start kind of drawing in a tree here. So now, one of the cool things about Photoshop, and even though it's not a painting project, if you set your opacity down like this, you can start doing some shading. So now you're getting a little different shading going on here. And I'm doing this just like that. Okay, so there I've got the makings of a tree. Let's add a new layer here, and let's go to a different color, and let's go to my greens, and let's make a bigger brush, and let's take a different brush type here. Let's take something like this that has some different shape to it. And you can probably start. Now my opacity is set at 60%, so now I'm getting some overlap here. Wherever it overlaps, it darkens out. Makes it a little darker, so you can vary your. So there's kind of a tree kind of taking shape there. Now, one of the fun things with Photoshop again is if you go in the same in your default brushes, you've got something down here that looks like blades of grass. So if I do that, and well, it'd be somewhat dependent on the colors chosen here. Let's pick my background color. Let's go to a different shade, maybe something like that. 2 shades of green like that, and see what happens with that. Make this brush a little bigger. And I'm going to do another layer. And I'm going to start doing something like this. And I'm just holding my brush down, and it's using the 2 colors in my color palette to come up with a whoops. Let's not do that. Combination. So now I've got some grass. Now the reason we're doing some separate layers is twofold. One, this layer's got my grass, so I could label this if I wanted to, but it's got my grass. So if I move my move tool, I can actually move this down and just do something like this. So now the grass is not as prominent. I could move it up, but that doesn't look real good. But I could move it down, and actually looks a little better that way. If you did not like the tree layer here, you could turn it off, and you could try put another layer in here. Let's say I do that. Let's add another blank layer here, and going into my brush palette again here, let's go to my brush, and you see there's something that's called leaves. I'll let my same 2 colors selected down here in my color palette. Let's make the leaves a little bigger, and here, just as I move my mouse around, holding the button down, it gives me my leaves. So you could use that instead of, or you could maybe turn both of them on, and I could turn the opacity on this layer down a little bit, and you get some interesting effects that way too. So let's see what's here. If we go to my brush tool again, and you have a variety of brushes you can go into. There's all sorts of different brushes that will give you different effects, different looks. Some of the natural bristle brushes like this. See what happens if I do that. And maybe if I choose a, let's go in my color palette, choose a blue here. Something of my sky. Let's add another background layer here. Let's layer this layer. Now, let's see, that's opacity there. I'm going to do Control Z to undo that. And let's set my opacity way down. And see, now you can actually put some shading into there to give you some coloring like this. Doing some swipes to there, getting some different things, and you can actually get a cloud effect, something to that effect. So while I'm not an artist as such, it's kind of fun to play around with some of these things and to see what you can create. I'll just be using the tools, the brushes in Photoshop, and while it's not a painting tool as such, it does give you, and if you put your talents to it, you can come up with some very interesting projects. Adding a matte to a drawing like this, or even a photograph, is a fairly easy process and a way to really enhance the look of your photo. What you want to do is you need to know your image size. If I go to image size, resize image size, I see I've got a 10 by 8 at 300 dpi, which is fine. So if I want to put a 1-inch matte around all 4 sides of this image here, I first will need to go to a new blank file, and I'm going to go up here to the photo sizes for starters, at least, I guess, and now make the width to be 12 inches and my height to be 10 inches. So I have an extra inch down here, an extra inch here, an inch here, an inch here when I get to that point. Let's say OK. There's my new blank file. Let's go back to this one, and the simplest way here to work with this is if I simply have on this image, do Control-C to copy, or excuse me, Control-A to select all of it. You see my matching answer here. So Control-A selects all of it, A for all. Control-C to copy. Let's click on this thing here, double click it, and move it, and Control-V for paste. And you see it pasted right in the exact center of your new blank file, which is what you want to typically have it centered. Okay, I'm actually going to go to this one here, and I'll close that for now. I don't need to save that, so we can get rid of that. On this layer here, let's first of all make this a layer that I can work with. So I'm going to double click this. I'm going to say call it background and say OK. And let's say that I want to put a matte here that is kind of complementary to this color I've got in the sky here. So what I can do, if I zoom in a little bit, hold my space bar down, I can move this around, and I can take my eyedropper, and I like to have it set at about a 5 by 5 average, and let's sample right here. If I sample that, watch what happens down here in this foreground color. It's going to change. So if I click here, I now have that color right there. Okay, so if I go to my color, let's zoom out here again a little bit. If I go to my color palette, that color is there. Now if I use that color, it's going to be exact same as some of these. It may blend together. So let's go with something maybe a little bit darker right about there, and do that. Let's go on this layer here. I'm on my background layer. Let's go to my paint bucket and just click here once, and there I filled it. Okay, so you've got that filled. Now it looks, in fact, that gives it a nice frame look and so forth, but you can do a few other things to it to give it a little more enhancement there. Let's go to my effects palette here and go to one that's called Layer Styles, and let's go here. At this point I want to use my bevels. We had all kinds to choose. I want to use bevels, and I'm just going to choose a simple, let's say just simple emboss. Well, let's go this one over here. I think it's a nice simple inner, simple boss. I think I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to double click that. See, it made a slight change here. There's a slight change here, not much, but if I go to my layer, this FX symbol, I can now click that, move this dialog a little bit here. I can change the size, and watch as I change the size what happens to your size of your bevel. See, now I'm giving some 3 dimension to that edge there. Okay, so let's say that's okay. Now you could change this. You could go to something, if I want to go to a simple sharp inner, I could change that. And again, and maybe I actually like that a little better because it gives me a little more, I kind of like that a little better, so I'm going to actually go with that. Okay, so now I've got, and you can see the dimension that's being given to it. You can also, if you want to change your lighting angle, that would change the direction which it's lit. I'm just leave it about where it was is fine. Let's go back on this layer, and let's go up again to your effects. Layer Styles is active. Let's go to strokes, and let's go to right here, strokes, and I'm just going to, in this case, let's just add a black black stroke to it. And now they gave you a little edge around this thing here around your painting. Let's double click this. Again, I can change the size of that stroke a little bit, so let's maybe make it a tad bigger, or you could type in a number here for number of pixels that you want. And you could also change the color of it. Let's go into my blue palette and let's choose something about there. Nope, that didn't do it. There, maybe I should do about there. So now I've got a kind of a soft blue-gray stroke around here with this blue mat here. Say OK. And so now I've got my painting or photograph framed, matted, and actually this gives it some dimension so that if it's printed on a glossy paper, it actually will almost look three-dimensional, while in fact it is only a two-dimensional piece of paper.